Hello everyone. Today we will be learning about nesting in C++. So in C++, nesting is the practice of placing one control structure, or you can say class or function, inside another. So basically it's like using multiple conditional statements inside of each other. So that's how it works. Now we can go to our code and we can say nesting in C++. So now first, for beginners, nested control structures. So what are nested structures? So you can say that we've used nested if statements are used when a condition must be met only after a previous condition is already true. So suppose you have int age equals 20, and then you have bool has license, or you can just say license equals true. So what you can do, if age greater than equals 20 or 18, if has license, you can do cout. Basically you can also compare this to true value if you want, is equal to true, but there's no need to write that. So you can cout you, or the student or the child can drive, you can drive, else you need a license, otherwise you can say you are not 18 plus. So this is called nesting. Suppose you use if inside an if statement. This is called nesting of if statements. So there are nested loops too. I'll just quickly go to code editor to show you what that means, what we have done here. For that you are supposed to have already followed the previous lectures. Now suppose you are asked what are nested loops. So you can say that these are crucial for working with grids, tables, or 2D arrays. And sometimes the outer loop runs one, and sometimes you can say these are even essential for tree, etc. Basically tree and graphs are 2D arrays only. So what this does, so the outer loop runs once and the inner loop actually keeps running till the time outer loop has stopped running. So for int I equals 0, I less than n, I plus plus, you can do cout I end line, and then for int j equals 0, j less than n, j plus plus, n equals 10. We can just do it for 5 times. J plus plus cout j, and at the end you can end the line. So these are nested loops and these are nested control structures or nested if statements. Now, if you have to go to intermediate level, you can say there are nested structures and classes, and furthermore, you can say there are nested templates, etc. But I won't be teaching them here. You can actually enroll for the course. Enroll for the course on coursera.com. You can enroll for this course, which is for free, and this course, which is paid. Here we'll be studying everything from basics to advanced, and in the free course I'll be teaching everything normally from basics to advanced too, but here we'll be learning something more important than this. We'll be learning templates and other stuff which we will use later in other courses. So basically you have to learn this. You can actually learn this only and then move to the next course, but if you want a better understanding you should purchase the course too. And the course will start from, I believe, 1st of May. As you can already see, or you can go to the description of the video and you can enroll it from here. Anyways, let's move to code chef. Now we can write our logic over here. So over here, when you run the loop, it will just give you for 0th I you have 0 1 2 3 4 j. For I equals 1 you have j equals 0 to 4. So basically this ran for 4 times, sorry 5 times, from 0 to 4. For second I you have 0 to 4 again, and then so on. Now suppose if I want to combine, or you can say nest if statement and loop together. So we can just do that by doing, let me just show you. You can just write if inside for loop. This is called nesting. Basically you can do it for anything. Basically this is also nesting. This main is a function, and inside that you have a nested loop, and inside that loop you have nested one more loop. So basically there are three nestings going on. First, main, which is the compiler readable function. Second, for, which is also compiler readable conditional, you can say, loop. And here we have conditions which will be providing, so this will completely be called conditional nested loops. And for this will be called our main function. Anyways, if you have Let's see if there's something that's changed. Yeah, so you can see for this, we have this. For first ith index, we have 0 less than 3, 1 less than 3, 2 less than 3. Let me just put some comma over there. And after this, yeah, so we have for 0th index of I, we have 0 less than 3, 1 less than 3, 2 less than 3, and then 3 greater than equal to 3, and so on. And similarly, we have for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we can do anything inside this. We can write any logic. We can write, but you can't nest a class inside a for loop. What I mean is you can't just declare class over here because you can't declare class inside a function. That's what uh, I mean. You can declare a class inside function maybe. I have never used it that way, so there might be a possibility that we can. But for now, let's just think that we can't do anything other than for and f inside each other. So, well, basically, you never need to use classes inside other functions. And maybe let me just quickly check whether we can do that or not. Yeah, so basically we can declare a class inside a function if we want. So I've already checked it over here. So basically we can even nest structs, and we can also nest structures and classes together. And after that, we'll just know that we can also do it for templates and other stuff. Now you may be wondering what I've written over here: class, public, and then void. What does all this mean? In later videos, we'll be discussing all these stuff. So for now, you can just ignore what I've written over here. But you have to remember that we can nest anything. We can nest a function, nest a class, and much more. I believe that's it for nesting today. Let's go to the next question. Basically, we have already solved the first question which I wanted to share with you. So let me first write the question, then we'll meet again. Let me just pause the video for now. Yeah, so now I've written the question. You can just check the question and start with the solution. So this is the basically the question. I'll explain it to you once, and you have to write the solution next, just after what you have to start writing the solution just after I finish the question. So a tournament has t test cases. For each test case, a player plays n round. To qualify for the finals, player must satisfy two conditions in a single round. They must score more than 50. If they score more than 50, they must have a ping latency of less than 30 milliseconds. Your task your task is to find how many rounds the player qualified in for each test case. So basically the constraints are 10, 20, 100, and 200. You can use as many for loops as you want. but you can't use more than what you can say root, or you can say to the anything to the power of 1 by 10. Well, no, sorry, or you can say it like that. Basically, you can just use 7 for loops at max in any competitive coding round. You can just use for if t equals 10, or you can say the number of rounds per test case is not greater than 10, then you can choose only what do you say only 7 for loops. Otherwise, for this one you can use only 3 for loops at max, because 10 times 20 is 300, sorry 200, and 200 times what 200 times 5, 0 0 0 0 0 0. So 200 times 5 into 10 to the power 6 is 10 to the power 8 times 10 to the power 9. That is the limit of our code over here. Anyways, let's see what we can do first. After that, we'll be moving to the question. So input format is for first line. For first line, you have t test cases. You have to take the input t, which has test cases. For each test case, the first line contains n the number of rounds. The next 10 line each contain two integers, score and ping. Output format for each test case, output a single integer representing the number of qualified rounds. Now then you have to just check with this sample input. You can write this into your input console, and afterwards you can check the output. So let's begin with the solution over here. Let me first write the solution, or let me just quickly explain what we'll be doing. First, we have to take the input t. We have taken the input t. Now for t test cases, which means we have to use a loop. Either we can use for loop or while loop. In case of test cases, since we don't have to output the test case, we can choose while t minus minus. That will decrease the t, and we'll get for t test cases. So on most of the coding platforms, you don't have to usually use for loop for these test cases, but in MetaHacker Cup, you might have to use a loop which is a for loop. Anyways, what does the second statement says? A tournament has t test cases. For each test case, a player has n rounds. So a player plays n rounds. This means we have an input n, and after n rounds, what do we have? So for n rounds, we have n number of lines, and in those n number of lines, they contain two integers, score and ping. So first is score and then second is ping. So what you can do is you can take a vector array, but since I haven't taught you array, we'll be doing it directly without any vector or array. So you can say int score. Either you can define it outwards, I mean outside the loop, or you can define that inside the loop. That depends on you. So int score, comma, ping. And inside for loop, you have to just check whether the input you take has a score more than 50, and if they score more than 50, they have a ping latency of less than 30 ms. So what we can do is we can write for integer equals less than x. So for ping, you have to take a strictly less than 30, and for score, you have to take a strictly more than 50. Suppose if I change this to, it's to 30, still the output will be 0 in third test case. For this test case, you have output 0. So if this happens, comma count equals 0, and then we can just print the output in the console. This should give us 1 2 comma 0. Okay, so I actually had syntax error. If there are any more errors, no. So this will be cout count and L 101. We are getting 101. Let's check where we have done wrong. So we take score, we take ping, and we check whether score is greater than 50 and ping is less than 30 or not. That's completely correct for now. Now suppose you have exactly 50, this will give us 1 correct, and for 50 we won't have anything correct. Okay, so this has to be 51 for output to be 2. So yeah, looks completely fine to me. Let's see what we have done wrong. I'm getting 1 1 and 1. So where are we wrong? Can someone guess? Well, according to question, I've done everything right. But I don't know where I'm getting wrong. So let's check if there is something that I've. Okay. So here we have 2 test cases and I've written 3 over here. So this we can remove this and we can write 1. Well, basically our code is correct, but what we have written there, we have written wrong over there. And this will be 6025, which will give us again 1. Yeah, so 111 should be the output. Now let's try changing the test case afterwards. Yeah, so 1 1 and 1 as the output. I believe that's it for today, everyone. We didn't write any code wrong, it's just that sample input and output were mismatched. I'll talk to the administrator later about this. Anyways, thank you, everyone. Let's see whether we can reach more subs today. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.